Alright boys, this is going to be a very long video as we're going to be going over all the random rolls for every legendary weapon currently in the game. Now, if you're wondering about our exotics, we actually did cover the exotics the other day from collections while we were in the game. That was just kind of a live look at it. We'll post that video below. This one is actually just going to be a look at all of the legendary weapons present to us in this expansion in this season, minus of course the raid weapons. Now there is a ton of them guys with a ton of new traits. So let's get started. First up, we have Duty Bound finally returning. And yes, there's actually going to be two versions of this weapon, the normal version and the adept version. Now this weapon is an adaptive frame auto rifle, meaning it shoots at 600 rounds per minute. And there's a couple of things I wanted to go over. First up, this is going to be dropping from Nightfalls, and it comes with the origin trait Stunning Recovery. Stunning a champion partially refills your magazine. It also triggers health regeneration, and it improves recovery for a short duration. Now again, with all of these origin traits, that's the thing that's making all of the weapons this season and beyond so special. Now, another one of the origin traits here that is also present on this weapon because it is a Nightfall related weapon is Vanguard's Vindication. Final blows of the weapon will grant a small amount of health. Again, on some of these weapons, you can have multiple different origin traits that you can choose from. So depending on where the weapon drops from, what playlist it drops from, and of course, whatever its foundry may be, will result in you having the different options there in your origin traits. Now, as far as random rolls go, we need to touch up on some of the new traits here. First up, we have Stats for All. Hitting 3 separate targets increases weapon handling, stability, reload, and range for a moderate duration. Now, actually, it sounds very similar to like One for All. You've got One for All, which gives us that 35% increase in damage when hitting 3 separate targets. So you can kind of see the synergy between both of those. We also have this new trait called Compulsive Reloader, where you're granted increased reload speed when close to a full magazine. This is essentially for my fellas that came over from COD that are constantly reloading after every single gunfight. Personally, I've already used it on a few weapons and I don't really care for it, as even inside of things like PvP, I'm chewing down the magazine, and you'll notice the diminishing effects of that increase in reload speed as you get toward like halfway down into the mag. We also have Steady Hands. Kills provide improved handling for all weapons for a short duration. Now, as far as the God roll here, guys, we gotta still point out Vorpal, right? 20% more damage on primary weapons, 15% on special. We saw the Vorpal buff that was handed out not too long ago. So Vorpal is still a good option, but honestly, I'm actually leaning a little more toward things like Frenzy, and maybe even something like Frenzy or Rampage with triple tap. And it's kind of interesting because probably the most standout combination here is both triple tap and 4 times the charm. Like, what? Is this even right? So yeah, I'm kind of confused about these trait combinations. We're gonna have to try it out and see what a triple tap 4 times the charm trait combination auto rifle would even do. You even got combinations like Zim Moment and Dynamic Sway together, which is also a weird one, both of which are greatly increasing your stability. And I would say if you're a controller user and you just want something to be super stable, well, by all means, you can go that route. But outside of that, I'm somewhat leaning a little toward this Stats for All. I'm curious to know how much reload we actually gain with the combination of all these different damage perks. One for All, Vorpal, Frenzy, Rampage, any of those. Now, as far as the combination goes for PvP, I think for console users, Zim Moment is still a great trait. And you can even do something like Zim Moment and Rampage together. Perpetual Motion is one of my favorite traits, as you get bonuses to stability and handling, as well as reload speed, as long as you're in motion. So you can combine that with a damage dealing perk or dynamic sway as well. Now, Duty Bound was never really a Slayer weapon inside of PvP, so I'm kind of leaning more toward PvE. Either way, this weapon has a lot of quirky trait combinations. Now, moving on to our next weapon. This is actually the Gambit auto rifle, Herod-C. Now, this weapon is actually a high impact auto, shooting at 360 rounds per minute. It does deal stasis damage and is present in that kinetic slot. Now, it too also has a couple different origin traits, one of them being Invader Tracker, where damaging the invader with this weapon will mark them for allies. Kind of a very specific trait there. The one under it is the Hake Breach Armaments, where the weapon deals increased damage against vehicles, turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. Now, we have not had many 360 round per minute auto rifles, and I gotta say, this one right here, guys, looks like it's got a lot of reach. I mean, its base range is 81. Now, like most Gambit weapons, there is a ridiculous amount of trait combinations. And I just want to take a moment to go through some of these that are brand new. One of them is Focus Fury. Dealing half of the damage as precision damage grants this weapon bonus damage. The shot count is reset whenever the weapon is reloaded or stowed. Again, we're very much new to all this, so I have no idea how much extra damage that actually is, what the cap cap is, all that good stuff. But I like traits like this because they reward you for landing precision shots, right? They also reward you for leaning into that mag size. With something like Focus Fury, you definitely want to buff that mag up. Get the most that you can out of that weapon bonus damage by having that beefier magazine. Now, the trait under it is called Turnabout. Using this weapon to break the shield of a combatant or a guardian using their super will grant you an overshield. Now, if you see that, yes, they mean literally the elemental shield of a combatant inside of PvE, and inside of PvP, just the shield of a guardian using their super. Now, with that knowledge, let's talk about this auto rifle. Again, I have no idea if Focus Fury is really any good at all, but I love the idea of Focus Fury and 4 times the charm and maybe extended mag. Really beef up that magazine, have 4 times the charm, feeding ammo back into the gun, maybe even slot something like Actium War Rig with this combination with Focus Fury, and as you deal precision damage, you'll be able to auto reload the weapon further down into the magazine, and fingers crossed that that reload function doesn't count from things like 4 times the charm or even things like Actium War Rig. And the same goes here for like Focus Fury and Subsistence together. If those combinations are no good though, you still have a number of other damage perks here that look really good. Multi-kill clip, Frenzy, One for All, combine that with either Subsistence or maybe even that Stats for All perk if it's really good. Headstone is present on this weapon, and I do like Headstone a lot, especially if you're synergizing it with a Stasis subclass. For PvP though, I love that heating up tap the trigger combo. Now, Tap the Trigger did get a nerf, but only on fusion rifles. Everything else is still very, very good. That increase in accuracy on the initial trigger pull will allow this auto rifle to get the initial kill and then to follow up immediately with something like heating up. Now, if you don't like that one, you can, of course, do something like Tap the Trigger and Dynamic Sway, or even something like a heating up combination with moving targets. Either way it goes, there's a lot of things here that's interesting with this weapon, primarily because it's a 360 round per minute auto, and we don't have many of those. We'll have to see how it performs. Moving on, we have the Krait, aka Valakadin 2.0. Now, this is a rapid frame auto rifle, 720 rounds per minute, and another weapon archetype we really don't get a lot of. Now, this is a Vice weapon, so its origin trait is Vice Stinger. Damaging an enemy with this weapon has a small chance to reload the magazine and increase movement speed while aiming down sights. Now, it goes on to say that bows also receive faster draw speed and swords receive faster charge rate while this perk is active. Now, the main takeaway here, just based off of that origin trait, is that there's a lot here we can build into. Automatically, I'm thinking, what if we take Vice Stinger and combine it with Subsistence? You've got an origin trait that's auto-feeding the gun, and you've got Subsistence that's feeding the weapon as you're defeating targets. Now, a couple perk combinations I want you to consider here with this combination. One of them is Adagio. Now, I know Adagio has never been a perk that people sought, but they have increased the duration from 5 seconds to now 7 seconds, and they also increased the bonus damage from 25% to now 30%. They even added +10 there in range, and they added a timer to the buff, so you can visibly see how long it's active. Now, a combination like Adagio with Subsistence and that increase in damage actually seems pretty nice. Yes, it slows down that rate of fire, but you'll have that increase in damage. Now, the other trait combination here is, of course, One for All Subsistence. That, of course, is a great combination, especially with that Vice Stinger. You'll be able to spray into a group of enemies, proc One for All, and that 35% increase there in damage, and then proceed to go ham. Now, we do still have Focus Fury here, and Focus Fury may actually be better on this weapon because this is a very large magazine auto, 53 rounds in the mag versus what we saw with Herod-C. There's a lot more here to work with on Focus Fury, and you can take a Focus Fury overflow combination for that big bump there in magazine with an even bigger bump with a mag perk. So you can imagine this right here, depending on the buff there from Focus Fury, you'll have essentially the same size, if not a bigger size magazine than you would have had with other auto rifles with this combination here. Now, for PvP, because Vice Stinger increases movement speed while aiming down sights, the perk combination I want you to consider is, of course, Moving Target. Now, Moving Target also increases that movement speed and, of course, target acquisition, and it gives a flat buff to aim assist. I love the idea of moving targets and steady hands together in combination with Vice Stinger. You've got a weapon here that, even though it's an auto rifle, is about to be an SMG essentially. It's going to feel fluid. It's going to be fast. It's going to have great target acquisition. And honestly, Krait here may be the auto rifle to put 720s back on the map. Moving on, we have Fel Taradiddle. And I know I'm probably not saying that right. Maybe it's Taradiddle. Taradiddle. Actually, no lie, that sounds better. This is a lightweight frame bow, meaning it has a 612 charge time. Now this will be a craftable weapon, which means, yes, there will be enhanced perks here that will be present on this weapon, as it is on pretty much all of the weapon crafting weapons, right? That's what makes crafting so special now. You can have these enhanced perks. Now, Psycho Hack is the origin traits, where sustained damage from this weapon lowers the target damage output for a short duration. Now, before we really dive into the enhanced traits, let's just take a quick look at some of the new traits, one of them being Successful Warm-Up. Each final blow increases charge and draw speed. Now, this is actually a similar perk to say something like Archer's Tempo, but instead of after every precision hit, it's after every final blow that you get that increase in draw speed. And I'm sure it's going to stack there with Archer's Tempo, so you can imagine how fast this bow will be shooting. This weapon also has stats for all, which is going to be a little more difficult to do here, considering you're going to have to hit 3 separate targets with a bow. Now, let's just move on to the enhanced traits, because I feel like that's what everyone really cares about here. First up, we're going to start from the top. We have Shoot to Loot. Shooting an ammo brick picks it up automatically and reloads all of your equipped weapons from reserves. Also increases range. This is the enhanced version here of Shoot to Loot. Corner. Faster charge time or draw time when surrounded by combatants. Improves stability. We also have stats for all. Hitting 3 separate targets increases weapon handling, stability, reload, and range for an improved duration. Now, this is interesting because the normal version of this states that it increases weapon handling, stability, reload, and range for a moderate duration. So it's probably just going to be a flat buff to that duration. Now, Explosive Head. Arrow explodes after a short delay. Increases accuracy. Killing Wind. Final blows grant increased mobility, weapon range, and handling for an improved duration. Again, improved and not short or moderate duration. I like that with Killing Wind here, it actually kicked it up to improved duration. So if it's the same as the improved duration from stats for all, which is even better than moderate, Killing Wind here being enhanced could be pretty substantial, guys. Thresh. Defeating combatants with this weapon generates an improved small amount of super energy. So again, still a small amount, but an improved small amount. Rangefinder. Aiming this weapon increases its effective range and zoom magnification and improves handling. It also increases projectiles velocity while aiming rocket launcher, grenade launchers, and bows. Now, the main takeaway here is that it actually improves your handling, which is something important because you want to be able to aim down sights immediately to proc Rangefinder. Now, an Adrenaline Junkie. This weapon gains increased damage and handling from final blows with grenades or this weapon for an improved duration. So just a flat bump there to its overall duration. Perpetual Motion Enhance. This weapon gains bonus stability, handling, and reload speed while the wielder is in motion for a short duration. Now, even though the base version of Perpetual Motion would say while the wielder is in motion, it would still persist even after you would quit moving. But for this situation, you're actually going to be able to hang on it for that short duration, which means it's going to persist even longer. Now, One for All. Hitting 3 separate targets increases damage for an improved duration. So a flat bump there to its overall duration for that increase in damage. Archer's Tempo. Draw time substantially decreases after every precision hit for a longer duration. Now, if you're like me and you're honestly just shooting one shot after another, this is not that big of a benefit, but it is something when going from target to target, right? To follow up with that prolonged precision shot, maybe you have to reload or something. Now, Successful Warm-Up, the enhanced version. Each final blow increases charge and draw speed for an improved duration. So a lot of these guys, these enhanced perks, are just overall bumps there in overall duration. As far as what I would use for PvE, I really want to try this Successful Warm-Up with Archer's Tempo. That seems very interesting to me. Outside of that, you can never go wrong with an Explosive Head Archer's Tempo combo. This is a kinetic, lightweight frame bow, and I know we have some fierce competition from the likes of things like Whispering Slab, but depending on how this bow feels and performs, that is probably going to be the biggest difference here. Now, moving on to Peace of Mind. This is a kinetic pulse rifle in the rapid frame archetype. It shoots at 540 rounds per minute, and it too has its own origin traits. And yes, it is craftable. This weapon comes with the origin trait Land Tank. Final blows with this weapon grant increased resilience and additional damage resistance from combatants. Now, that increase in resilience, how does that transition over into PvP? I don't know. It specifically states that you have increase in damage resistance from combatants, but I think the overall increase in resilience will definitely still work inside of PvP. Will it max out your resilience? Will it go beyond that? That's something we're gonna have to test. Regardless though, this is a 540 kinetic primary pulse, and we don't have many of those, which is why I'm extremely excited to see how this weapon will perform. And it also has enhanced traits, which is what we're gonna jump into immediately. Overflow. Enhance. Picking up special or heavy ammo loads this weapon even further beyond normal capacity, which seems nuts because Overflow essentially doubles doubles your mag size. So if it goes even further than that, I mean, we're talking potentially like maybe what, 80, 90 in a mag, not even including a mag perk there. Moving targets, enhance, increase movement speed, and improve target acquisition when moving while aiming down sights. So this honestly just looks like the same exact thing, but it must be just more, right? More movement speed, more improved target acquisition. Auto-loading holster. The holster weapon is automatically reloaded after an improved short period of time. So when you actually stow the weapon, it will reload even faster. We also have elemental capacitor, substantially increases stats based on the currently equipped subclass. Now this is all still the same. Solar increases your reload speed, arc increases handling, void increases stability, and stasis actually bumps up that recoil direction and increases movement speed while aiming down sights. This sounds like a similar situation to moving targets, where it doesn't really display the numbers, it's just more. Now compulsive reloader grants greatly increased reload speed when close to the full of the magazine. And again, the other one was just grant increased reload speed. So that greatly increased could be substantial enough that you may want to use it. We also have Focus Fury, dealing half the magazine as precision damage, grants this weapon bonus damage for an improved duration. Now the shot count is still reset whenever the weapon is reloaded or stowed, but the main thing to take away from here is just that overall improved duration. Now we have stats for all, which we just went over, which is also a bump there in duration, Adrenaline Junkie, Perpetual Motion, and of course Vorpal, increased damage against bosses, vehicles, and guardians with their super active. Now the enhanced version actually improves your reload speed, which is actually pretty good. Vorpal is already really good on primary weapons. Heating up, final blows with the weapon increases accuracy and stability while improving vertical recoil for a longer duration. So a bump there in its overall duration. And Harmony, final blows with other weapons improve this weapon damage and performance for an improved duration. So a lot of these enhanced traits, guys, it's either a small bump in stats or an overall bump there in duration. Now, as far as the trait combination you should choose, for something like PvP, I love that heating up elemental capacitor roll, especially enhanced versions of that, right? You can also do a perpetual motion with moving target enhance. And depending on how much damage Focus Fury actually increases here, there will be times that Focus Fury can be used, even in things like PvP. Take Hawkmoon, for instance, right? The more precision shots Hawkmoon lands, the stronger it gets. If Focus Fury is the same way, and an enhanced version that allows for that improved duration, you can run into a situation that as long as you're tagging on precision shots and getting to that bottom half of your magazine, you'll be golden to gunning down targets in a much faster TTK. But again, we have to check out how much damage is being increased. For PvE though, Vorpal, without a doubt, is fantastic. Combine it with things like Overflow, Focus Fury, Auto-Loading Holster, Vorpal, or even Auto-Loading Holster and Harmony. Can you imagine having Harmony being procced by another weapon, swapping over to Peace of Mind, getting that increase in damage, completely unloading your magazine, and then swap back over to your special weapon or heavy weapon to reproc Harmony. Enhanced auto-loading holster would of course top your weapon off yet again. A lot of interesting combinations here, guys. I'm actually really excited to try another 540. It's been a while. Moving on, we have the Syncopation. This is a stasis adaptive frame pulse rifle, and it shoots at 390 rounds per minute, and it actually has the Suros Foundry trait, where it says that reloading grants this weapon bonus handling and reduces incoming flinch for a short time. Now, an interesting perk, I don't really know how much flinch it actually reduces, but that increase in weapon handling, that's pretty nice, right? Like you're coming out of your reload animation to immediately have quicker handling to be aiming down sights again. I'm down, man. Now, this weapon also has enhanced traits, which is telling me that this weapon is also craftable. I haven't crafted it yet. I have been getting raw drops of it though, a bunch. But let's go through a couple of things. First up, we haven't looked at enhanced hipfire grip, but it states that it greatly increases accuracy, stability, and precision hit targeting when firing from the hip. So I'm already thinking like last word hip firing accuracy. We also have enhanced headstone, where precision final blows will spawn a stasis crystal at a target's location. You get a slight bump there in stability. We also have compulsive reloader, which is honestly kind of an interesting one, right? Because this states that it grants greatly increased reload speed when close to the full of the magazine. That in combination with Suro Synergy, where you're constantly compulsively reloading, means you're constantly getting that reduction there in incoming flinch, and of course that bonus there in weapon handling. Now, enhanced frenzy. Being in combat for an extended time increases damage handling and reload speed for this weapon for an improved duration until you're out of combat. And I'm assuming it's going to persist even longer than what Frenzy currently persists. You also have enhanced steady hands, where kills provide improved handling for all weapons for a longer duration. Now, Enhanced Head Seeker. Body shots landed with this weapon increases precision damage for a short time. Also improves stability. Now, Headseeker actually got a change here with the most recent sandbox patch where they extended the buff duration from 0.17 seconds to 0.3 seconds, essentially allowing for your weapon, most notably for like slower rate of fire pulse rifles, to take advantage of something like Headseeker over multiple bursts. I don't think this pulse rifle here is going to have a problem with that, but just something to look out for. We also have Enhanced Zim Moments. Causing damage with this weapon increases its stability. It also improves base stability. So not only will it increase stability as you deal damage, but just right out the gate, it will improve your stability. We also have Outlaw, which is enhanced. Precision final blows greatly decrease reload time for an improved duration. So you may even be able to double proc a reload when proccing Enhanced Outlaw. Now we've covered all the other enhanced traits, but let's talk about it, guys. What is the combination you should go for PvE, fellas? Obviously, that Outlaw Vorpal combo is really good. Outlaw Frenzy, stupid good. I do like the idea of like a compulsive reloader frenzy combination. Like that just sounds nutty, right? You can't go wrong with Headstone, but for PvP, I don't know which way to go here. I want to try out Zen Moments, that enhanced Zen Moments. I want to try it out with Headseeker, which also just got a buff. I want to see how this combination now performs. Adaptives, though, they're not the slowest handling pulse rifles, but they're not necessarily the fastest. I will say, though, being a Suro Synergy weapon, you will have increase in weapon bonus handling. So you may not have to rely on something like Steady Hands. But I do like the idea of a compulsive reloader perk with Suro Synergy just to see if that synergizes together. Now, something like Rangefinder and Hipfire Grip, is that going to be the meta here? I don't necessarily think so. Rangefinder, although it does bump the range up, does increase that zoom. And for some, myself included, that tends to mess up my target acquisition at that short to mid-range, right? And considering our maps, outside of what just got added, Vostok and Eternity, everything else is fairly close. Now moving on, we have the Perses-D. Fellas, this is a mean scout rifle. I was actually playing with it earlier, and I love it already. Feels good. It also deals stasis damage. It's a high impact scout, and it shoots at 150 rounds per minute. Now it comes with the Hockey Breach armament traits, where the weapon deals increased damage against vehicles, turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. Now being a scout rifle, and a 150 scout at that, it's doing some pretty hefty damage, and you're going to be going for those precision shots. I actually had one with Headstone earlier, and it felt pretty good. You can even do like a Headstone rapid hit combination to really take advantage of it. You do have explosive payload, and you can do like an explosive payload stats for all, because again, explosive payload has that area of effect damage. So you can hit multiple targets at once with that. So I'm sure something like Stats for All will be easier to proc. And then of course you can also just do a Vorpal rapid hit combination for that increase in damage by 20% against bosses, vehicles, guardians, and their super, and of course against champions. For PvP though, I am curious about explosive payload the most with rapid hits, and maybe even something like opening shot with perpetual motion, right? Something to increase that handling and reload speed, as well as that stability when moving, and actually attempting to run and gun with this archetype, which is normally an archetype you never run and gun with. But this is a scout rifle that will shine on mounts like Eternity and even things like Vostok. And from what I've already experienced from this weapon, it feels very, very good to use. Moving on to the shotgun. This is actually a slug shotgun in the kinetic slot. And considering Chaperone just got a hefty nerf, you're going to start seeing more legendary slugs and maybe some other shotguns. But this is Fortismo. It actually has two different traits in its origin traits, one being Vanguard's Vindication. Of course, that's Suro Synergy. Now, personally, inside of PvP, you're not going to really be taking advantage of Suro Synergy simply because you're not going to be reloading that often. However, Vanguard's Vindication, those final blows that grant a small amount of health, might actually be really, really good here. Now, some things that really make a slug shotgun feel good to me, and I know there is a ton of perks here found on this weapon, so it's going to be a heck of a grind, but I love the idea of steady hand with opening shot. That combination with high range on this thing is going to put in some work. Now, if you just want that bump there and handling up front, and considering you're going to be moving because it's a shotgun, then perpetual motion with opening shot is also a fantastic combination. Now, if you like snagging headshots pretty easily, or if you need a little bit of help, moving target is also a great one there, and you can do a perpetual motion moving target combo. As for PvE though, I'm actually really excited to use this shotgun. You've got Vorpal that's present on it, 4 times the charm. Vorpal is still a 50% bump there for special weapons. I'm also interested in Focus Fury. Again, we don't know the synergy between Focus Fury and perks like 4 times the charm. This weapon only has a -6 round mag, but that could be enough to get that increase there in Focus Fury. And if it is substantial enough, that damage bonus might be worth getting further into that magazine. You do have perks like Frenzy, Adagio as well. Again, lots of comparisons here to be made. I do like the idea of Turnabout, simply because you can move up in things like PvE, break the shield of a combatant, and this probably does count against Lucent Brood in their supers, and this can grant you an overshield. And you can even double stack it with no backup plans, possibly. This is all theorized, but I'm assuming no backup plans, and this perk could go together. Either way it goes, I can personally tell you this shotgun actually wrecked me in comp earlier, so yeah, it's pretty good. Now next up we have the Ragnhild. I don't know, man. It's a kinetic shotgun though, in the aggressive frame archetype. Now this is a Hake shotgun, which of course comes with the Hake breach armaments. And again, like most aggressive frames, it's high recoil, hard hitting, but they actually have an increase in its rate of fire after a kill. So almost like a pseudo desperado effect. Now this particular weapon has a couple trait combinations that are pretty cool. First up, if you do not have a 1-2 punch shotgun, now is the time to get one. This is a kinetic shotgun, so it's gonna be doing full damage. Also, the combination of dual loader and 1-2 punch is probably a good combination now, since dual loader actually got a buff and no longer reduces your reload stat as substantially as it did before. It used to be -50, now it's -35. Now as far as other PvE combinations to go for, you do have Frenzy, Perpetual Motion. Of course, you can still do dual loader with Frenzy. Frenzy would probably eliminate, actually completely eliminate, the reload nerf that dual loader has. So you'll be loading 2 rounds at a time fairly quickly. And if you have a mag perk, it'll reload that no problem. You do have Adrenaline Junkie if you're rocking like a grenade build. For PvP though, I'm actually curious in a high range role with Accuraz rounds. So things like Rifle Barrel, Accuraz rounds with Perpetual Motion, and potentially Thresh or Demolitionist. Now I say Demolitionist on here because in Void 3.0, your neutral game abilities is just as deadly as your super is now. So it's very, very good. So having your grenade up is extremely beneficial. So you may want to consider using a Demolitionist weapon even inside of things like PvP. If you're just looking to get your super back fast, then Thresh is always a great combination to go with. And if you want to make this weapon just super dumb in terms of its handling, and you're rocking like an arc-based subclass, you can do Elemental Capacitor, Perpetual Motion, and max range to just have a shotgun that, despite its aggressive archetype, it can perform very, very well and fluidly at that.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.